It's been nearly a month since the U.S. and Israel launched airstrikes against Iran. The war has been largely centered around nuclear power, so we've been told. The strikes happened after nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran stalled and then fell apart. President Trump has said he doesn't want them to have nuclear weapons. Joining us now to break all of this down, because it can get lost in, I guess, the fog of war, is nuclear expert Debak, assistant professor at the University of Denver. Sir, thank you so much for breaking this down, because very few of us are nuclear scientists.
There's a lot of questions out there. So first and foremost, can you talk more about what is needed for nuclear capacities, and in reality, how long can that even take?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, for nuclear capacity, first of all, you need the fissile material that goes into a bomb, right? And then you need that bomb to be on a missile or on a device that can be dropped by maybe an aircraft. So those are the three sort of things that you really need. That takes time. That takes a fair amount of...
Like years? What would you say?
It takes years, absolutely. Okay. Just extracting the uranium, enriching it, takes a really long time. That would take years in itself.
So we know Iran has been at this for a while, their stated goal, and our country's stated goal was to not let them have a weapon, by any means necessary, because now we're attacking, I think it's over 10,000 targets between Israel and America. I'm wondering, I know we have to get the best information from our government about what their intelligence says about where the nuclear material is. We were told back in June, I think, that it was obliterated. Obviously not, because we're still going back at it. But how will we know if we've damaged it enough?
Difficult to say. There is no good way of knowing where all that enriched uranium is. Before the strikes in June, we were told by the IAEA, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog, that 400 kilograms or so of 60% highly enriched uranium was potentially removed. Now, we don't know where that is, right? So we could potentially go in and see the United States bomb some of these nuclear facilities, but is that material there?
Removed by the regime, you mean? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And just a follow-up to that, will that limit Iran's nuclear program, all of these strikes, whether they're striking anything that is substantial or not? Will that intimidate them? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it'll limit the program to the extent that it'll be slower, right? So a lot of those facilities have now been bombed. A lot of the centrifuge enrichment facilities will potentially have been damaged. So there's definitely going to be a delay. Now, that does not mean that they wouldn't be able to build things back up again.
And I know this is sort of the $64,000 question, and you do not have a crystal ball, but is there any way to accomplish what we're talking about, keeping Iran from having a nuclear weapon, without either boots on the ground or inspectors on the ground? Like, how will we know?
I think you're right there. You need to have the physical sort of material to be taken out of Iran if the goal is denuclearization. And the way to know is to have inspectors on the ground. Or their alternative is, you engage in diplomacy and you get them to get inspectors on the ground or give up that material potentially. But that might not be achieved by bombing necessarily.
Okay. Now we have less than a minute. Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal with Iran back in 2018 during his first term. Do you think this new deal, is this anything different? Will this change anything in your opinion?
Well, I think there isn't a deal on the table at all. What we know before the strikes started was that Iran had potentially offered to give up its stockpile to downblend, which is basically just dilute all its enriched material. Now, after the strike started, those talks broke down. Now, we don't know whether that is still on the table or whether it's not. So we'll see with what the new negotiations sort of give us.
Only time can tell.
Interestingly enough, right before we came on to talk about this, we were talking about just this. And you said perhaps if the Trump administration had taken that offer that Iran gave, how would it have been bigger than what the Obama administration was able to accomplish?
I think it would have been massive. It would have been as important as the joint comprehensive deal that was negotiated under President Obama. Remember, under President Obama's deal, Iran was allowed to hold on to 300 kilograms of uranium that is enriched up to 3.67%. Under what the Iranians were allegedly offering, it would be zero enrichment and no stockpile. So that could have been a deal that could have surpassed even the JCPOA.
All right, but here we are. And
Yep.
We'll see where we go from here. Professor, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.